Hi, everybody. My name is Karilyn Brown, and I'm the course leader for the Cultural Leadership Masters in Fine Arts at NIDA. I've been in this role since the beginning of last year, and I'm very, very excited to be able to have an online webinar with you all who are interested in knowing more about this course. Before I jump into that, I would like to sincerely acknowledge that NIDA, I'm speaking to you from NIDA, and our storytelling and our learning takes place on the traditional and unceded lands of the Bidjigal and Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So thank you so much for joining us. This is a world that we're, in some respects, becoming very used to, of having to do our connections and communications online. And I very much hope that you will find this 3/4 of an hour that we have together today productive and useful for you in terms of your interest in the course. The order will be that I will shortly, when a few more of you join, I will shortly go into a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation, which I will talk to, and that will give you an overview on the course and some of the key components of the course. And then I have 3 amazing alumni students who will be joining me for a conversation that I'll facilitate with them for about 15 to 20 minutes or so, 20 to 25 minutes. And then we'll open up for questions. And I really encourage you to put forward any questions you have, to just type them up through the chat button. And certainly for the time being during this presentation and the conversation with the alumni, if you can have your, be muted and have your video off, that would be great. But once we get to Q&As, I very much welcome you to unmute and pull up your videos if you'd like to ask questions. So in the meantime, as I mentioned, everybody will be muted. And also the other recommendation, if you would like to, is to use the speaker view rather than the gallery view for the presentation. So we're just, I think, getting to a few minutes past 5. So I will just slowly move into the PowerPoint presentation. And I do that by going down here. Is that right? Where am I? So just down here. There it is there. Thank you. I have 2 amazing people who are joining me to help, Ben and, thank you, Ben and Charlene. Thank you both. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. So now you should see the screen is shared, and I'm hoping that you can all see the PowerPoint now. So welcome, as I've mentioned. Just go to here. This course is now in its 5th year. So we're 5.5 years into the course. It's a relatively new Masters of Fine Arts course delivered at NIDA. Actually, one of the things that often I'm asked is, wow, why is a cultural leadership taking place at NIDA when it's a school, a training school for the performing arts? But actually, I think it's an extraordinary context and framework for this course, because whatever practice we're working in, and in this context at NIDA, it is primarily performing arts, but actually this course is about cultural leadership as a whole. And I think it's a great feather in NIDA's cap to have this course as part of its teaching and learning, as part of its MFA school here. But it's also because NIDA is a national institution. It's hugely regarded both nationally and internationally. And to have something that is quite unique like this MFA in cultural leadership at NIDA is a great credit and opportunity for you all, and also for NIDA. The course is a future focus program, and it's ultimately about cultivating the next generation of leaders in arts and culture. The sector needs leaders who will be well versed in cultural policy and practice nationally and globally, who understand the contemporary issues and challenges that are critical to the vitality and the relevance of the sector. Leaders who have the advocacy and entrepreneurial skills to drive innovation, inclusion, growth, and sustainability across the cultural sectors. And so this course is absolutely around reaching to people who are coming from working in the arts and cultural area, and I'll come to the diversity of that shortly, but who are driven and inspired to have a role of change, to create opportunities for cultural expressions and for diverse cultural expressions, to have those voices play a critical and embedded role, not only in the arts and cultural sector, but more broadly in our broader society and in a cross-disciplinary way. We have a number, this is an example, a slide that covers our second year cohort. So they are all students who are in, as I mentioned, in their second year. And really the course isn't restricted by discipline, as I've mentioned. We support the leadership and development and aspirations of practitioners, arts and cultural managers, policy makers, cultural facilitators from across Australia's arts and creative industries. So this cohort is actually made up of people who are coming from libraries, from local government, from Indigenous cultural activities and centres, from independent producing, from writers' centres, from production management, from theatres, from the National Gallery of Australia, from the National Museum of Australia, a whole range of disciplinary practice and expertise, which is why this course is so rich. The course, the cross-disciplinary nature of the cohort, combined with opportunities for really strong peer-to-peer learning, enables students to consolidate their skills, knowledge, and expertise to lead confidently across a wide range of sector disciplines. It allows students to integrate work with life study and culminates in an international placement after the 30 months, which I'll talk about shortly. So it is very much, we've also had people from the film industry, from tourism. So it is that broader context for arts and culture that we're looking for in leadership and leadership practice. We're also very much focused on looking to the future. It is totally about the future and what kind of role arts and cultural leadership plays in that. We have, in our mainstream context, we have very much in the performing arts and across the arts, we have, as we would recognise, a great weighting towards the Western tradition and Western canon. And while there are extraordinary valuable opportunities within that, this cultural leadership course is very much around inclusion and diversity. So this is a very important part of who we are as cultural leaders, is looking at how do we embrace, engage, and absolutely posit the voices of others who are coming from different cultural experiences and different cultural voices. So we're often in this course, in every subject, and I'll come to the subject shortly, asking about how are we making this more inclusive, our world in arts and culture and our engagement more broadly? How are we changing that model or those models? And where are we creating those new opportunities for new voices? Change doesn't happen overnight. And as cultural leaders, we recognise that the more we can get organisations and individuals who have the wherewithal and capacity to introduce this change, we will see much more happening, and with a sense of urgency and commitment that we need to be seeing reflected through cultural leadership. This is an example of a panel that we had last year where we brought scientists and artists together to talk about the future and what does it look like and what kind of role can arts and culture play in that. This is a panel that connected, was an amazing and fortuitous gathering of directors from Asian Australian background and non-Asian Australian background at the beginning of March, before we had the closure of NIDA as a result of the pandemic. This was a collaboration with Contemporary Asian Australian Performance and NIDA, and we brought across from Singapore the internationally renowned director Ong Keng Sen, Dr. Ong Keng Sen. So this was absolutely an example of where cultural leadership within NIDA and externally through partnerships is really very much engaged in how we create opportunities for different dialogues and different conversations around leadership and what that could look like. In the middle of last year, and we hope to do this again next year, is bring together a First Nations cultural leadership panel. Again, articulating the role of our original peoples from this country and the long, long history of leadership that they have and bring to bear in our contemporary society. I'm just going to go through a couple of slides quite quickly with you now, because I'm more than happy to follow up with you individually through the email and by phone calls with more details on the course. As I've mentioned, this course is very much for people from different disciplines in the arts and cultural sector. We have a number, we've now in our 5th year, so we've had 2 graduates come through. And as part of the 3rd graduation will be happening at the end of this month. We are very much a course where we bring together amazing teachers. Those teachers are involved in, for example, we have Fiona Winning, who's the head of programming at the Sydney Opera House. We have Joe Porter, who's the CEO from the Queen Victoria Women's Centre in Melbourne. Anna Houston, who's head of the Communications and Advocacy subject, Dr. Jessica Olivieri, who heads up Cultural Transformation and Sustainability, and Dr. Suzanne Osmond, who heads up our academic research subjects. So everybody is taught by an extraordinary array of teachers, and of course we bring in amazing industry-based guest speakers and tutors along in every subject and in our intensives. The course content, for those of you who would be starting in 2021, this gives you an overview, and this will all be updated and available to you on the website as well. But you can see that the subjects that we cover are leadership and governance, communications and persuasive presentation, cultural policy and practice, and generating research through practice. And in the next 18 months, so it covers a 30-month period, part-time as you know, we have cultural transformation and sustainability, generating research again, communications and advocacy, research methodologies specific for cultural leadership, and the international case study. This is an example of some of the international placements that were made last year or in the graduating cohort that is about to graduate. So this gives you a sense of the diversity of placements. We don't take everybody to one place. Everybody throughout this course, we develop a program that is individualized to you and your practice. And so at the final case study, the final assignment that you have, is subject that you have, is very much around this opportunity for you to extend into a place that is a lifetime opportunity, essentially, to undertake research embedded in a leadership context with an international arts organization. We're clearly experiencing challenges with that at this point in time. And for this year's cohort, we are understandably looking at extensions for them to be able to undertake their international placements. But by the time the 2021 cohort is doing theirs, we're in 2023, and I don't expect that we will be having difficulties with border closures at that time. The course structure, part-time over 30 months, blended learning model of online and face-to-face. You come to NIDA in Sydney for 4 intensives a year, and those intensives are somewhere between 4 to 5 days. Those intensives are held at the beginning of February, the beginning of May, the beginning of August, and at the end of October. The last 3 intensives are where we bring first and second year cohorts together, and that provides an opportunity for us to do some combined teaching, but also for the cohorts to be networking and working with each other. And finally, the last couple of slides, we have the Luminous Foundation Indigenous Cultural Leadership Fellowship, which is a wonderful annual fellowship for our Indigenous students. We also have the Lynn Williams Award for Outstanding Achievement in Cultural Leadership, which is given at the graduation ceremony for a student who has reached an outstanding achievements in their work. And to apply, all these details are online on the website, so you may have seen them, but I'm looking for a detailed CV of up to 3 pages and a personal statement outlining your interest in the course and your leadership experience, just to 600 words or so. And of course, there is the overall document that you fill in for NIDA. Those details, the documents that you prepare, etc., on NIDA, and applications open from the 6th of July and close on the 30th of September. And for any additional information that you may need, you can certainly contact NIDA online or by phone. The fees are also online. The fees will be remaining the same for next year as they are for this year. That gives you an idea of what it is, the total fee over the 30 months and what it is on an annual basis for 2021 and 2022. But there is also fee relief and other avenues for you to be able to pursue for that. Thank you. I'm sorry that I needed to run through that very quickly with you. These are my details and my phone number, and please don't hesitate to contact me. If you have any further questions, I'm really happy to follow up with you. Now, I'm going to introduce the 3 alumni who are joining me. And I'll do their introductions relatively quickly because I want to make sure we have time for conversation with them as well as with others. So the first alumni who's with us tonight this evening is Jo Thomas. Jo is a curator and programmer, performance maker, producer and collaborator in the contemporary arts. As CEO and creative director of Metro Arts in Brisbane, she is strategically extending the organisation, taking it further into national and international spheres while remaining true to supporting the multidisciplinary, independent and emerging artists. In 2020, Metro Arts will begin a new phase under her direction as operations move to the West End in Brisbane. 2020 has also sees the establishment of Metro Arts Future Fund to future-proof the organisation, commission more work, support artists and grow audiences. Jo will work closely with Perpetual Private on the growth and investment of this new fund initiative. Jo was a member of the inaugural cohort of the Masters in Cultural Leadership and completed her degree in 2018. Jo is a Churchill Fellow and was recently announced as the Queensland Businesswoman of the Year in 2020 Telstra Businesswomen's Awards, which is fantastic. Helen Healy is also joining us this evening. Helen is an arts and cultural engagement consultant, having produced over 300 events in the Mildura region and across Australia. Specialising in arts and cultural troubleshooting and turning around organisations, she has 25 years experience in event management, performance, festival direction and executive roles to inform her work. Twice a finalist in the Australian Event Manager of the Year Award and nominated a Victorian Small Business Hero, she has served in many boards and industry advisory groups, including Creative Victoria, the Australia Council for the Arts and Regional Arts Victoria. In 2019, Helen joined the Mildura Rural City Council with the councillor portfolios of community development and gender equality, and in 2020 completed the Australian Institute of Company Directors course. Helen completed her Masters in Cultural Leadership in 2019. Jordan Gibbs is our 3rd alumni. Jordan is the Client Director of Culture Counts Australia based in Perth. Culture Counts is an innovative and collaborative monitoring and evaluation platform for places, events, services and experiences. Jordan seeks to fuse effective cultural policy solutions between government and the cultural sector. No small challenge. Prior to his role at Culture Counts, Jordan was the Assistant Technical Manager at Crown Perth's Theatre Department and Head of Audio at His Majesty's Theatre Perth, where he worked closely with the West Australian Opera and the West Australian Ballet. He holds a Master of Arts and Cultural Management from Deakin University and a Masters of Business Administration from the Australian Institute of Business. Jordan completed his Masters in Fine Arts Cultural Leadership in 2019. I thank the three of you so much for being able to join me today. Helen does need to leave us at 5:30 because she has to go to a council meeting, and it's a very important one because it's about the budget. So it's great that you could join us, Helen. So Joe and Jordan and Helen, and I might go to Helen first. I'm just going to facilitate some questions from you, and if you could, we'll have succinct questions and answers for the next 15 minutes or so. But I've given an overview of your bios, your experience, but I'd be really interested in knowing, and I think our participants would be interested in having a sense of what led you. Why was it the right time and the right place to take on the Cultural Leadership Master's degree? Helen, I might go to you first.
Thank you. And hello from Lachi Lachi country in Northwest Victoria. I had a mentorship with Robin Archer a number of years ago, so we kept in touch, and she suggested I do the course, and it came at absolutely the right time. I'd made my career up. I hadn't done any study in like festival direction, artistic direction, event management. I just made it all up. So I thought it was a great opportunity to like put some meat on them bones of my self-education and come along and just do some learning around leadership and research and lobbying and advocacy. And so it was just the right time at that point in my career. And also probably a testament that it's never too late to do it, because I'm actually over 60 now. So I started in my late 50s, but never too late to do this kind of course. And it's had a huge impact on my life and my career, and still filtering into the work I do as a troubleshooting consultant and on my work on council as well.
Thank you. Joe.
Hello, everyone, and I'm coming to you from Brisbane, so Turrbal and Yagara people land here. I guess I come from being a practitioner. I was an actor for a really long time. I moved into producing, and I'd been with Metro Arts as their executive producer for a couple of years. And I decided it was time to probably do another degree and really specialise in leadership. I knew this was the direction I wanted to go in, and I don't know if it was good or not, but just as I started the master's course, I was promoted to the role of CEO and creative director with the organisation. So what was beneficial for me from that was a lot of the study I was doing was directly influencing my work at Metro Arts. It was very challenging, but very rewarding.
Thank you, Jo. And Jordan, what led you to the course?
Well, look, I had done 2 masters previously, and I was already in like technical production, and I was thinking about trying to like move into kind of the more administration side of it. And I had done the MBA, and I had done a arts management, but it was something. There was just, you know, there was something about the kind of cultural leadership material that kind of really kind of grabbed my interest, and so that's why I applied. And it was probably the most, like, of all the education that I did, it was probably the most meaningful in terms of what I got out of it.
Thank you. For the three of you, what are the couple of things for you that were really the most outstanding highlights or learnings, and what were probably the most significant challenges for you in doing the course part-time and balancing it with your careers? Helen, I might go through to you first again, as you might have to head off shortly.
I might have to slip out, yeah. For me, it was the caliber of people I got exposed to across the lecturers, the presenters, and the cohort. You know, people like our lecturers, like you know, Barbara Doran and Ang Harrod, Wyn Jones and Fiona Winning and Sue Osmond, Joe Porter, like they were amazing. And then we got exposed to people who came in and did guest lectures, like Wesley Enoch from Sydney Festival and Stephen Page from Bangara, and a number of people Genevieve Greaves, you know, talking about decolonisation, and just some really, really impressive people. But I think on the whole, it was the friendships and the professional relationships that have come out of that, and the network I have now around Australia with people I can call on or bounce ideas. Like a few of us got together recently to talk about the pandemic and the impact on the arts. So we were talking about how that was working out for us. So yeah, the people. And I guess the biggest challenge for me was not so much balancing, because I'm self-employed and I've set my work life up that I can work from anywhere. I'm totally online. It was just a distance, you know, it was like 3 flights and about $800 or $900 for flights each time I went to Sydney, let alone the cost of accommodation. So it was more just the operational stuff of getting there. And I'm going to have to fly, so I wish I could hear your answers, Joe and Jordan. It's great to see your faces again, and bye.
Great to see you, Helen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Helen. Bye-bye. Joe.
Bye, Helen. Yeah, I completely concur with what Helen says. The networking and the friendships are a very big part of the benefit of this course. But the other thing, I guess, for me was this opportunity to delve deeply into conversations that you don't get to have when you're in the small to medium sector and working flat out all the time. You don't get to have deep thinking, deep reflection. So a great example of that for me was delving deeply into cultural policy, not only in Australia, but also internationally. And that has stood me in great stead in the last few years in particular. I've been doing a lot of advocacy and having very high level meetings with politicians. I met with our Premier last week and again yesterday. So being able to refer to that detailed knowledge, knowing I have it in there, is highly beneficial, I think. And challenges, I won't sugarcoat it. For me, this job is at least 50 hours a week, if not more, when you're also going out to attend exhibitions and performances. I spent, I would say, almost every weekend locked away studying, you know, a good 8 hours a day when I was studying this course. That's how I work, and I'm really happy to do that. I know a lot of my cohort members did it in a different way, but that's how I did it, and it worked for me.
Thank you, Joe. And Jordan?
Look, I think, I mean, absolutely to echo what Helen and Joe said. I mean, the cohort that I think you meet in a course like this, because everyone is kind of already practicing and has kind of an experience of being in the sector, and then having it also be such a diverse and broad experience means that the conversations over the 2 years you do the course are so interesting, and like way beyond what you would get, you know, by like going to like a conference or anything like that. Like, you know, look, if I'm honest, like attending conferences now, I feel like, oh, we're just barely touching the surface in comparison to the kind of conversations that you would have over the 2 years. I mean, it's truly magnificent. But yeah, like Joe said, the hardest thing, and I think, you know, everyone in my cohort felt this as well, is managing the kind of work-life balance behind it. But I mean, in saying that, you know, NIDA was like really like flexible and supportive in terms of being able to, you know, help us manage our lives and the course as well, which I don't think you could say for a lot of tertiary institutions out there.
No.
I agree with that. I had that same experience.
No, I think that's right. And I think that's why, again, coming back to this course being in NIDA, one of the really important things to recognise is that it's a conservatoire. And so that conservatoire model is applied with this course. So it's very much about you, the individual, and making sure that the subjects that you're studying and the assignments that you do in those subjects, you bring back and relate to your own practice. So it's not disengaged or disembodied from who you are as an individual. Our cohort numbers are a range between somewhere between 9, 12, 13 people. So they're quite small and intimate cohorts. And that works very well in terms of the teaching and the subjects and the group work and the group presentations, as well as the individual work. So yes, that kind of support is absolutely underpins how that one element of the benefits of what we try to ensure each student has as part of doing the course. I'm really interested in a couple of things to draw out from you both, and I think I have a little bit of time to do, or just a couple of minutes. Given what you've been able to articulate came out of the course for you and that benefit, where is your thinking in terms of not only your own leadership role, and clearly, Jo, you mentioned you've been doing a lot of advocacy, and I know that advocacy has been on behalf of the sector more fully, the small to medium sector, et cetera, over the last many years, really. And I know, Jordan, you have done the same to advocate on behalf of the sector as well as the work that you do. Are you seeing, or what would be, your sense of how this leadership context that you work in is creating change? How are we, or you now, creating or thinking about the space and the footholds and the opportunities for our future leaders, given that even a few years ago, it was such a challenge when you started the courses to think about, where do I find my place as a leader here? What kind of thinking are you bringing to bear to how you are creating that space yourself for others?
What a challenging question. I think I was reflecting on this yesterday, actually, at this meeting with the Premier, and then I got thrown into a press conference and asked to speak off the cuff about the arts sector. And I was reflecting that just having the confidence of this course behind me really assisted in that. And Metro Arts as an organisation has always advocated for independent artists, for experimental artists, for artists of colour and our Indigenous artists. We have a commitment to democratisation of access, but being able to have a larger platform to actually voice those issues is really crucial. And I don't think we saw this happening 3-4 years ago. It was always the majors who were asked to comment, who were leading the sector, while the smaller artists, the experimental artists, the artists on the fringe, the small to medium were lost in that really important conversation. So I see that as a really important part of my work, to keep knocking on the door and saying there are diverse stories and opinions out here, and you cannot only look to, yes, our wonderful major arts organisations, but you have to look across the sector. I firmly come from the grassroots. I firmly live in the grassroots. And I think these are the voices of the future, these artists who are in live and living art. So that's a really important part of my advocacy and leadership. And I think it's my job as a woman to also bring my younger female leaders along on this journey. I'm mentoring some young women, and I will always be fierce in my advocacy for women as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jo.
Jo, that's so interesting. Actually, you're absolutely right. Like the kind of confidence that the course kind of gives you, because you end up having such deep conversations, and they're so complex as well. Like it really does make a lot of difference. Like that first, I'm just reflecting on, and when you see the picture of Brian Walker from the CSIRO just kind of sitting there with his grumpy old man thing, but like I distinctly remember like him talking about kind of resilience and system thinking, and exactly to Jo's point, like I think the way that we've been able to more kind of broadly appreciate the cultural ecology as a whole, I think has been really, kind of really powerful. And it kind of started with, well, it didn't kind of start with the Brandis raids, but it definitely kind of shone a light on how there was like a wide spectrum of cultural activity from a lot of different stakeholders, and I mean even the new approach stuff that's happening now, looking at the kind of broad range of funders that are engaged in the cultural sector, also kind of really helps that resilience as well. And look, definitely I'm very conscious of my own privilege as a white man, and I like the bureaucracy can like get in like the absolute way of that. And so in terms of what I try to do is I just try to get people out of the way. So anytime I can kind of use like the data that the sector is collecting through culture counts, and I get really into the stats because I'm a bit of a nerd, but like if I can use any of that to kind of get bureaucracy out of the way and kind of empower artists to do what it is that they do, that's kind of what the course gave me. That's kind of where I was like in technical production, like as a technician, like you're very much kind of put in a position where you just want to get the tools right so that the artists can stand on that platform and do the amazing work that they do. And that's kind of, the course has really only just kind of reinforced that thinking in me.
And I think, thank you both. And I think one of the other elements that's quite important to know about the course is that our sense of leadership and our framework for leadership is absolutely around collaboration and shared processes. It's not about it's not a kind of 10 steps to become the CEO of an organization and do it all on your own. I think one of the things that's deeply embedded is around that leadership is a multiplicity of characteristics and engagements and methodologies and approaches to it. I'm just going to stop for a minute and if anybody is interested in asking a question, please let us know. I have a couple of more questions I can keep going with, but if anybody, I don't think we have any questions on chat at the moment. But if you do have any questions, please let us know. That would be great. But just coming back to that point is very much, what do you, when you look at when you started in the course and finished the course and where you are now, what would be the 2 or 3 things that you would say are the characteristics of effective leadership or good leadership or respected leadership? Or what do you look for when you're looking to others who are leaders, or what you expect of them?
Jordan, I'm going to let you go first this time because I'm a good leader.
Look, I'll take that then. Look, the point that you made, Karilyn, about there being no right way to be a leader, I think was really unique to this course, and I think to the kind of people that it attracts, right? I mean, like there's a lot of other courses out there that are about leadership that are that kind of like here are the do's and don'ts of leadership, whereas I feel like what the course kind of like taught you was a very kind of a deconstructionist approach to leadership, that there is no right way, and that the better we are at kind of being able to make space for everyone, the better we are at kind of being leaders, whatever that even means, which we talked about a lot. We talked about a lot in the course. In terms of what it gave me, like the only reason I am even able to be in the job that I am in now is because of the opportunities that the course gave me. Like I because of the international placement, I had to reach out, and like Joe, I was really interested in the cultural policy element of it. And I think if I'm totally honest, I think a lot of other cultural policy kind of units in the kind of arts sector out there kind of give you the facts and don't really kind of talk about it. But the cultural policy elements that we talked about in this course were really interesting, and so I found that quite inspiring. And then I ended up reaching out to Culture Counts, who I knew were doing a project, who had just started working in the UK for Arts Council England, and I just went in, had a meeting, and just started talking to them, and they were like, "Who are you?" And then from that, did my placement, and they said, "Do you want a job?" And I was like, "Heck yes." So there's that. You didn't ask that question, but I decided to say that anyway.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's all good. Jo, do you any perspectives?
Yeah, I think I'll add to that. I mean, Jordan displays one of the things that I really look for in leadership, and that's passion. I think that's crucial to us having an improved future. Shared leadership, absolutely. Openness, the ability to listen, I think is really crucial. And I was reflecting again recently around the difference between compassion and empathy. And for me, compassion is another crucial element of leadership. We've got a lot of work to do in this country around our First Nations, around all of our people of colour, around shifting some of these old ways of thinking and working, not only in the arts, but in society. But I really think we have to do it with compassion. That's a crucial part of moving forward together.
Thank you. We don't have any takers for questions at the moment, so I think we'll wrap up shortly. But before we do, would either of you or both of you have some advice for prospective students to think about over the coming 2 to 3 months as they ponder the possibility of applying for this amazing course?
I guess I would say look really closely at your work-life environment to ensure that once you make a commitment to this great course that you can absolutely give it your all. There is so much richness there. You don't want to be cheating yourself or your cohort by only being able to put in 10%, 50%, whatever that might be. But also I think just take a leap. I know I don't know who's tuned in and is listening, but I know particularly for younger women, we often don't think we can do it, and we need a bit of a push in that way. And that can be true of a lot of people, and sometimes just take that leap of faith and know that you can do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Jo. I think there are a lot of incredibly talented people in the cultural sector who sometimes let imposter syndrome get the better of them to not take the opportunities that are out there. And it would really only to be encourage you to reach out to Karilyn, reach out to NIDA. If you're uncertain or you just want to have a conversation, like Karilyn is incredibly, insanely open at just her time, and Karilyn's great. So if you just wanted to talk to her to be all like, hey, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I just wanted to have a conversation about this course, she would love that, and she would give you so much of her time. It's incredible. So
I'm really happy for people to reach out to me as well, and I'm sure Jordan is too.
Always.
Yeah, great. That's wonderful. And thank you. Yes, indeed. I'm really happy because, in fact, you would both know that we have a couple of students who thought about this for a year or two. They looked at it when it first opened up in 2016. We have a student in second year now who looked at it in 2016, looked at it in 2017, and then in 2018 came on board. And so it is taking the leap. It is that looking at what your context and your circumstances are. But knowing that when it's the right time and it's the right thing, you will be fully immersed in an incredible expanding opportunity in your life and your work that impacts very broadly, not only in a professional context. And as both Jo and Jordan have said, they're very happy to have conversations too. So Helen's based in Mildura, Jo's based in Brisbane, and Jordan's based in Perth. And other alumni have also indicated they're very open to it. So I encourage you all. I thank you both very much, Jo and Jordan, for joining today. It's been great to have the conversation. I've missed our conversations. And I encourage everybody who has been able to join us today to contact me if you would like to follow up with anything else. And thank you again for participating. Thank you all. We'll finish now.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thanks, Karilyn. Thanks, Joe.
Bye.
Bye.